companies are now allowed to write off the full cost of new equipment the year that they buy it, rather than spreading it out over time. This comes as part of President Trump's new mega bill. Joining us now, Senator James Lankford. He's vice chair of the Senate Republican Policy Committee. And Senator, I don't know if the rest of the world was excited about this, but we heard many of our guests talk about how powerful and important this component of the big, beautiful bill was for corporations. And I think that's the case you want to make here. Tell us why.
Well, it is because you have the opportunity to be able to not have to borrow money to be able to pay your taxes on the year that you have a big expense. A lot of companies are looking to be able to buy a new piece of equipment, whether it's a big truck, if you're a delivery service, or whether it's manufacturing, whatever it may be. They've had to depreciate that off after several years. Now they can do it in the year that they actually purchase it. So that expense happens that year. That helps them in their taxes. That also incentivizes them to buy more equipment, which helps more manufacturing, which helps more jobs, which helps the economy. It's one of the most, if not the most, pro-growth portions of the bill, and it's permanent tax policy, unlike what we did in 2017, where it diminishes a little bit each year. Now it is 100% expensing every single year from here on out.
And this is one of those things that I guess critics say it was expensive, but then proponents would say, and I guess I consider myself a proponent, that when you're spending money, and a lot of times we're spending money we don't have, but at least it should be something that has a chance to come back and have a great return in the private sector. I mean, if you're going to deficit spend, at least it should be pro-growth.
This is absolutely pro-growth, and the issue on deficit spending is you're going to depreciate this asset out over several years. So the way the Congressional Budget Office looks at this, they look at what's called a 10-year window. They look at the next 10 years. So they would say things that you buy 8 years from now, they can't count the depreciation on year 11, 12, 13. They can't count those, so they consider that deficit. As crazy as it sounds, it makes no difference to the federal treasury, whether we do it all in 1 year or depreciate out over several, but it makes a huge difference to that small business, that manufacturing businesses, that corporation, whatever it may be, to be able to do 100% expensing this year and the year that it actually occurred. So for me, this is expensive only in Washington, D.C. terms. It's very beneficial to the economy.
I'm trying to see if I really, I don't know if I really understood. So this did not add to the deficit, even with the way the CBO scores it?
Well, CBO scores it as a deficit. In real life terms, it doesn't affect the deficit because the depreciation is either going to carry out over years or it's going to be in a single year, but it gets depreciated out. So in real life terms, when you look at the actual deficit that's actually being spent or that we're losing on that, it doesn't have an effect on that. It is a scoring issue, not a real deficit issue.
The other tax cuts that we saw, I mean, it was going all along. We knew that extending the 2017 cuts, we were going to hear from critics that was going to blow out the deficit. Then the president layered on quite a few more tax cuts with tips and Social Security and overtime, et cetera. Do you consider all of those pro-growth, and you expect a return? Or maybe increased revenue and increased tax revenue from growth? Is that how you would argue for those as well?
Those aren't necessarily pro-growth the same way that the full expensing is pro-growth. Full expensing, no doubt, is overwhelmingly, that's pro-growth. That adds more to the economy on it. When you've got some other things like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, those aren't necessarily pro-growth on that. That is very beneficial to that group of folks and is targeted towards the lowest income to be able to make sure they're getting some tax relief. But those are not necessarily pro-growth the same way that you've got the full expensing is pro-growth. But those are issues the president's been very passionate about.
It seems like he gets his way more often than not. So I don't know if I would have stood right in front of him and said, no, we're not doing that. Did Senator Johnson come to you and try to talk you into joining him to do more than one bill and to go line by line over all the increases that we've seen since pre-pandemic levels? Because, you know, you had Elon Musk until you didn't have him, and then you definitely don't have him at this point. There could have been more cuts, and we're still well above the spending levels that we had prior to the pandemic. Will there be another reconciliation bill down the road that tries to?
There needs to be another reconciliation bill. As you remember, you go back to January, February, March, the Senate was saying overwhelmingly, let's do 3 bills. Let's put this into different pieces. It takes months to over a year to get some of these things all laid out. So let's do 3 bills. The House came back and said we could only do 1. And as we saw, the House had a very close margin. The Senate had a very close margin. We got as much deficit reduction as we could get done in this bill and actually get the votes to be able to pass it. Our desire is to be able to bring up another one, to be able to keep going and to keep working on what are we doing on deficit reduction. So this is the funny Washington, D.C. math. This is either $3.5 trillion of deficit or $508 billion in the positive on this, depending on how literally CBO scores it. They have 2 different scores out there. One is in the black, one is in the red. We look at it and say, okay, we kept the tax rates the same. CBO would say you should raise everybody in America's taxes next year, and that'd be better. We also say that would kill the economy, and so we're not going to do that. So we're going to try to keep the tax rates the same, and then also work on what can we do to do deficit reduction.
So the House said 1 bill. But there's going to be another. There's going to be more, right?
Well, the Speaker has actually brought up the possibility of another one. We've obviously worked on the possibility of another one. We have what's called a rescission bill that would come up next week, excuse me. That would be about $9 billion in reduction. There are some ways we can do a piece at a time. There are also different bills that we can do larger. At this point, whatever progress we can make to be able to whittle down the deficit, we need to be able to do. But at the same time, we can't hurt the economy. We have to have a growing economy. We have to reduce our spending. That combination has to be there.
What do you make of the latest forays in the tariff wars, Senator? Will they, some of the biggest tariffs, will they be levied? Will we slap those on some of these other countries, or will they come to the table by August 1st?
I would say many countries are already coming to the table. We've already had some tariff agreements already and some trade agreements. Obviously, Vietnam's a big one. They're very close to settling the issues with India. That's a very significant trade partner. So we've got several that are either in process. They've got some progress and actually have a signature on. And there are quite a few of them that they're actually getting very, very close. So they're trying to be able to extend out the deadline to August the 1st to say, let's ink those. They're not going to have 100 done by August the 1st. But if they can get 3 or 4 more, they're showing real progress. That's good. Let's just keep moving at this point. I'm one of those folks that likes low tariffs and no tariffs. That takes an agreement to be able to do that. They've got to be able to open up their market, like what Vietnam has done. They've got to be able to open up their market so that we can actually get greater access to there. We've got lots of countries that are allies that still block out American products. Let's get that fixed.
Do you think the next bill would be before the midterms? I'm already thinking about, I'm like I'm in Congress. You know, the day after I get elected, I'm thinking about the next election in the midterm. Will there be more Republican legislation signed by the president, do you think, before the midterms? And after the midterms, is it still going to be possible?
Well, let's find out on that. The American people are going to decide what happens on the midterms. But yes, I would hope that we could actually get more of the Republican-only bills that actually focus on deficit reduction before the midterm election. I think the American people are supportive of trying to be able to bring down this $2 trillion deficit. It's always, I want you to bring down the deficit, but don't affect the thing that I like. That's just not going to be possible with a $2 trillion deficit. I think there are a tremendous number of people across the country that get that. They say they've got to balance their budgets. Their state has to balance their budget. The federal government's got to be able to do that the same.
Very good. All right. It's 8 o'clock. I know you got to go. We got to go. Thanks for your time today, Senator.
You bet. Good to see you again.